Look, if you've clicked on this explainer, chances are you're already deeply familiar with this overwhelming, bone-deep feeling of exhaustion. Maybe you're dealing with brain fog that makes simple, everyday tasks feel just monumental. Or you're having these moments of emotional dysregulation that seem to come out of absolutely nowhere. Before we even start, I want to validate exactly where you are right now. What you're experiencing, it's real, it's incredibly heavy, and you are far from alone in trying to figure out what the heck is happening to your body.
Okay, let's dive into this. Because for a vast number of us in our mid 30s to early 50s, this is the ultimate, most confusing question. You know, you're exhausted. But is it because you're running a business, managing a full time job, and carrying the entire mental load of a household? Or is it because your hormones are actively shifting into perimenopause? This overlap of symptoms isn't just a coincidence. It's a genuine biological mystery that leaves so many of us completely lost in the dark.
I mean, the author of our source material hit the nail on the head here. She said, "I cried in a car park last month over nothing. Actual nothing." She shared that alongside stories of forgetting her own mother's name mid-sentence on the phone, or waking up at 3 a.m. wired like she just chugged 6 coffees. And when things like this happen, our first instinct is always to blame ourselves, right? We think, obviously I'm just burnt out. We write it off as this personal failure to manage our stress. But as you're about to see, the reality happening beneath your skin is way more complex.
33%. That is a staggering number. According to a 2025 Flow Health preprint study that tracked over 7,600 women, a full third of women over 35 don't even know which reproductive stage they're currently in. Just think about that. A whole third of us literally do not know which chapter of our own body we're actively living in. And look, it's not because we aren't paying attention. It's because, historically, nobody built a clear way for us to tell.
All right, let's get into Section 1, the biological countdown, specifically the Wallace and Kelsey model.
And this brilliantly illustrates what's actually happening. Just to prove you aren't going crazy, the Wallace and Kelsey model out of the University of Edinburgh literally maps out our ovarian reserve, our egg count, over the course of our lives. You're born with basically every egg you're ever going to have, which is around 1 million. By puberty, boom, it drops to 300,000. By your mid-30s, you're closer to 25,000. And by menopause, it's under 1,000. This timeline proves definitively that your system is fundamentally and structurally changing. It's not static.
This biological countdown is just an absolute inevitability. As our source notes, it's been running quietly since before you could even talk. Nobody is stealing your eggs. That's just the countdown doing its thing. What this means is that the wobble you feel, the sudden exhaustion, the unpredictable moods, it is a completely natural response to a changing internal environment. It's a biological reality, definitely not a personal flaw.
Now, the direct consequence of this countdown hits your day-to-day life really hard. Think about it. In your 20s, having a massive egg reserve meant your hormones ran smooth and predictable. But as that pool thins out, there are fewer follicles left to produce that steady stream of estrogen. So each cycle is essentially scraping from whatever's left. This causes these chaotic, totally erratic estrogen drops. It totally explains why things get more chaotic with age, not less. The supply itself is shrinking and it's getting unpredictable.
So moving on to Section 2, why they feel identical. The Venn diagram of exhaustion. You might be wondering, if perimenopause is definitely happening, why is it so incredibly hard to separate it from burnout? Well, it's because they create this literal Venn diagram of exhaustion right inside your nervous system. On one hand, fluctuating hormones actually shift how well your brain buffers stress. This means a standard, mildly annoying work email that you used to brush off, it suddenly hits your system 10 times harder. And in return, your newly elevated stress levels shift your hormones right back. It's this continuous, overlapping loop. Your sleep, your mood, your bodily inflammation, they all sit right in the crosshairs of this loop.
I absolutely love this analogy from the source material. Your body isn't malfunctioning, and it's not confused about what's happening. It's just dealing with two heavy systems leaning on it at the exact same time, a shrinking hormonal reserve on one side and modern life's chronic stress on the other. The real issue is simply that your body cannot separate the sources of the pressure. It just never learned how to hand you an itemized bill, right? So instead, it hands you one massive, overwhelming bill of exhaustion. All right, let's look at Section 3, the REST test, a diagnostic tool. Now, what's really interesting about this is we're going to completely skip those endless, confusing symptom checklists. Forget them. Instead, I want you to ask yourself this one ultimate question. Did rest actually help, even a little bit, the last time you crashed? Seriously,
Think back to your last weekend off, or your last attempt to just literally lie on the couch and do nothing. The way your body responded to that pause is the absolute best clue to what's happening beneath the surface.
So, let's break down the outcomes of this test. If you rested and felt even slightly better, it's probably stress. You need real rest, and no, a nap crammed between chores does not count. Now, if you took a full weekend off and felt zero relief, it is probably hormonal. Rest isn't the missing piece there, regulation is. And if you're genuinely not sure, you're likely dealing with both simultaneously. Welcome to the club. Nobody's handing out medals for a perfect self-diagnosis anyway.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 4, the first move, regulation over rest.
Here's the thing. Whether your root cause leans more towards burnout or perimenopause, the universal solution is exactly the same. You absolutely cannot out-train or out-rest a nervous system that doesn't feel safe. This brings us to a biological goal called autonomic flexibility. Basically, this is your nervous system's ability to recover from stress. The objective here is not to eliminate stress because, let's be real, that is literally impossible. The goal is to teach your body that it is allowed to come back down. It's having the ability to spike when a threat appears and then seamlessly return to baseline once it passes.
So the crucial point is this. Your nervous system needs actual biological regulation. It does not need another productivity hack disguised in a wellness costume. Just taking a quick breather before jumping into another chaotic task isn't going to cut it anymore. True regulation requires specific, intentional inputs that signal actual safety to your deepest physiology.
So what does that look like? Here is a concrete, evidence-backed daily maintenance protocol to signal that safety. First, daily diaphragmatic breathing to lower your cortisol. Second, NSDR, which is non-sleep deep rest. Think of it as a guided body scan for 10 to 20 minutes, just to refill your capacity. Third, just 30 to 60 seconds of cold water at the end of your shower to train your acute stress response. And finally, the big 6 lymphatic drainage to clear physical stagnation. These simple inputs stack up over time to really recalibrate your system.
Look, I really want to bring this back to a deeply validating truth for you. You are not broken. You're running a decades-long biological countdown while simultaneously holding down a full-time job, relationships, and just modern life in general. It is entirely, completely unreasonable to expect this massive internal transition to not show up in your body. It is doing its absolute best with the load it's carrying. Which leaves us with this final thought for you to take away today. Now that you understand the biology, the shrinking egg reserves, the chaotic estrogen, the way stress and hormones constantly amplify each other, you have a choice. Are you going to continue gaslighting your own biology and treat your exhaustion as a glitch you just need to power through? Or will you finally recognize it as an incredibly intelligent system, just begging for regulation? The first move is yours to make today.